Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be troubleshooting some problems that TehSoldierPig appears to be having in their map, Nostalgia Roblox. They say they're getting FindPortalSide issues. They're adamant that that map has no leaks, but I haven't seen a complete compile log from them, so I'm going to try to get to the bottom of what's going on. So first off, let us do a VBSP only compile. That is by opening run map, making sure that only the SP is enabled and clicking go. Okay. Right. So let's have a look, shall we? Doopy-doopy-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay. Ignoring the errors about missing materials, because I do not have all of the up-to-date assets for the map. Looks good, looks good. And so we hit these FindPortalSide errors. There's only 3 of them, which is interesting. Normally, when these errors happen, you get quite a lot of them, and at some point VBSP just says sod this for a game of soldiers, and it just gives up displaying them and only displays a certain amount. So, FindPortalSide couldn't find a good match of which brush to assign to a portal near 45.0, blah 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 blah. This means that none of the brushes in leaf 0 or 1 that touches the portal has content solid. Check for a huge brush enclosing the coordinates above that has the contents solid. Candidate brush IDs. Brush 15919. Okay. So let's mark that 15919. I think Control C works. And let's go to that brush in Hammer. But before I do that, I'll make sure everything is shown. That's fine. Okay. Go to brush number. Control V. Good. Okay. Alright, so we've gone to the brush in question. This is a long brush that makes up the top part of a roof. So what I'll do is I'll press Alt and Enter, and I'll add that to a new viz group. And I'll call it potential FindPortalSide errors. Oh. I won't call it FPS. I'll call it FindPorts. Make sure it's added, click Apply. Okay. So the next one, let's try that. 15802. 15802. Okay. So where are we here? We're in the ground. This brush is what appears to be a ground piece, or the floor of the building. So if I press H to hide it, it disappears. So it's a blue. Oh, the entire thing is a front brush. Okay, fair enough. Let's go to solid mode. What was it? 15802. Alright. So this blue brush here appears to be part of this funk brush house. If I hide the entire funk brush, the whole house disappears. And I think that brush that I selected earlier on was actually part of that funk brush. So it seems to be having a bit of a theme here. So what I'll do again is just add this brush to our potential find ports again. Go back to group selection mode. Open our compile log again, and the final brush, 15802. Okay, fair enough, right. Well, I think the simplest solution is to, first off, just hide our brushes. Press Ctrl S. Get rid of this. And we'll do another, VBSP only compile and see what happens. Alright, well VBSP appears to be compiling fine. So it would seem that the problem is caused by those two brushes there. I don't understand what the cause of the FindPortalSide error is. It's always a bit of a hit and miss thing, and my experience, remaking a brush has usually solved the problem. So what I'll do is I'll select this one here, delete it, and I'll copy the one next to it, and I'll just select some adjacent brushwork for reference, and then hide everything else so it's easier. What brud size is this on? Okay, it's not aligned to the grid. That's a shame. I guess the best thing we can do then is to duplicate the brush by shift and dragging. And it's about that much in, I suppose. Maybe overlap it slightly. It feels dirty. Bum, 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 bum. 39.1. Okay, well I'll ignore everything else because that's not what I'm here to do. Shift and Z, by the way, to go in and out. That looks fine. Ish. "32, 32. And it's on 1, so this one must be the one that needs aligning. There we go. Okay. Right, so now we'll remake this brush here. Looks to be the extent of the wall around. So again, I'll just copy some reference brushwork. I'm guessing that the floor height doesn't really matter. And the only reason that brush exists is to change the colour of the floor. So I don't need to select the floor itself. So again, I'll press Ctrl H to hide everything and put that floor. I think I'll delete it because that's the whole point, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, hang on. I need to get the texture first. There we are. Oh, it's actually overlapping with the brushes. Okay. So let's kind of interior dimensions do we want here? Okay, not ideal. Right. Again, it's not aligned to the grid, so we're going to have to overlap it slightly. Bit of a shame. Never mind. Press return. Shift Z, Control E. Oops. There you go. Control E. Right, so let's go up to a grid size of about 8. And we'll drop this down. About half height. I may as well align that to the grid as well. So that's that. Go back into group selection mode, unhide everything by pressing U. Select the house, select the new brushes. Control T to tie them all to the same entity. Escape. Press U again. Control S. Just to save, and let's do another VBSP only compile. Curious. Okay, so, I just hit that by accident. Let's find our compile log, which lives in here. There we are, right at the bottom, I believe. Okay, so we've got 2 errors again. This time we've got quite a high number, which suggests to me that it's complaining about one of the new brushes that I've created. And here we've got a number which is very similar to the old one. So what I'll do is I'll look at the old one first, press Ctrl C to copy that. I'll go to View, go to Brush Number, Ctrl V, OK. Okay, this time it wants to complain about a windowsill. I hope this isn't going to cause lots of problems. I'm getting to the stage now where I think the best thing to do might be to just rebuild the whole house. but I suppose we can just persevere and see what happens. So I'll ignore that one for the time being. I'll go and check this new brush. Control C. And go to brush number. It's just Control Shift G, so I'll use that keyboard shortcut in the future. So this appears to be the new brush that I created. Now I'm a little bit confused because this should not be causing an issue. Maybe it's because I duplicated a brush that already existed. So what I'll do is I'll press Control W to go into Solids mode. I'll select that brush, hide everything, select the texture. Oops. Go down to our stupid grid size of 0.1. And then I'll press Control B and I'll draw out a new brush. Press Return to confirm it, Escape to select it, and then press H to hide it. And then I'll delete the existing brush. Unhide everything. Ugh, okay. And that's that. So clearly you've used a different brush material scale here. So your material scale is 0.05. So I'll copy that, select the whole brush, paste that in a couple of times, hit apply, problem solved. Okay. Right, so next brush is this windowsill, I think, isn't it? Let me just make sure I've got the correct windowsill. Control Shift G. Alright, so let's hide everything and let us just remake this brush completely. So, what the heck? It seems you've got some vertices floating around there. I'll use this view up here because it seems to be the easiest to work with. Right, I'll press Control B and I'll drag out a brush which is similar proportions. Alright, hide that brush, select the original, delete. Unhide, Shift and Z. Control S to save. Let's do another compile. Okay, well it's all the same brush now at least, so 16160. Control Shift G, Control V, return. Alright. This is rather frustrating. When does it end? When should I stop replacing brushes individually, and when should I just rebuild the whole house? Tell you what, let's just do this one more brush. This one brush. Good crikey almighty, what am I going to do with this? It's quite a large brush, and if I were to create a new version, then it would be noticeable because it may not be aligned with its adjacent materials. I'd have to be very careful not to overlap with the door frame brushes here. Hopefully it's aligned to the grid. So let's select some adjacent brushwork by pressing Control and clicking on brushes close by to it, so we know what sort of boundaries we have. And then we'll press Control H to hide everything. Select the brush in the center. Alright, I'm just going to delete this brush now. And we'll start from scratch. So, because that brush that I've just deleted was the one that we had selected last, then that means when I create a new brush using the brush prefab tool, Shift and B, it will automatically adopt the thickness or dimensions of the brush that I last selected in the other viewports. Oops. Shift and right click to retexture that. Let me just go through that again actually. You may have noticed I don't just select an adjacent face and then right click and shift, and the reason for that is because when you do that, it copies the properties from the previous face to the next face or brush that you click on. And I don't want to copy along things like texture shifting, luxel scales, rotation scale, etc. I prefer to use the world alignment settings. As you can see here, texture shift 00. So what I'll do is I'll just select the texture and then I'll right click, and then you can see it still has the world alignment. World alignment isn't very obvious in this map with these materials here because they're all tiling, but they're fine detail, and this brush is just a solid colour, so you wouldn't notice that. There are benefits to world alignment. I believe there's a texture memory usage benefit because you don't have to store lots and lots of texture alignment offsets in the BSP. It just uses the world or coordinates and things like that. And I think there's also a limit of some kind with that involving. But another benefit is that if you don't use texture locking, then when you pick things up and move them and you stick to a grid size, then their texture alignment will more or less stay the same. So now that I've replaced that brush face, I always press U to unhide everything, it's force habit. Control S to save. Let's do another compile. VBSP only compile, just to get the reports of leaks and errors. Okay, well that seems to have fixed the problem. So what I'll do is I'll run through a quick test of the map. So I believe everything is ready to be compiled. So what I'll do is I will open the Entity Report tool. I'll look for Logic Arena, TF Logic Arena. I'll add that to a viz group actually. User, and as you can see here, I've got the TF Logic Arena in its own custom viz group. So if I turn that off and then save the map again, I open up my copy of CompilePal. I'll use my quick check and then I'll hit compile. Quick check is like fast mode, but it has some changes to it because of the fact that I use the slarty fast set of compile tools, which by default do some better quality lighting. So what I've done is I've added some arguments to VRAD to reduce the quality of the lighting even further. I also usually only compile in HDR when I'm testing. And I always compile and test in HDR because it means that in the future I've got a better idea of how I can light the map. These days I don't start with just LDR and then compile HDR later. I always start and compile in HDR and set up the lighting for HDR and then look at providing lighting for LTR afterwards because it's much easier to light the map then. Okay, well that seems to have worked. TF2 is opening for me now. I think I've still got some custom assets actually installed in my Team Fortress 2 directory that I need to delete from somebody else's map. The thing about having loose files in your Team Fortress 2 directory is that the more loose files you have, the longer it takes for Team Fortress 2 to boot up, because it has to take longer to scan these files. And that's part of the reason we have VPKs, is because VPKs have their own built-in index of files that the game could just refer to. It doesn't need to search for files to see what it has. What I do is I have all my custom materials stored outside of Team Fortress 2 directory in Source SDK 2013's directory instead. And The benefits of that are twofold. One is that it decreases the time taken to load TF2, and when I compile and run maps, I always pack custom contents. So when the map is copied over to Team Fortress 2 and I run it, I can immediately see any missing content. So press continue, and we'll choose Scouting Bloke. We've spawned in fine. And because there's no TF Logic Arena,
Let's go.
I can spawn in. Okay, so the map appears to be working. The lighting quality is not very good, so you can ignore that. And I think our house was over here somewhere, wasn't it? Is this the house? Not sure, actually. Oh, fuck. Okay, maybe that's not the house. Ugh. This could be the house. It looks suspiciously like the house. Okay, fair enough. Right, well I think that's pretty much it. So, problem solved. I will pass the VMF back to you now, TehSoldierPig, and I hope you have no more problems. I encourage you to Google your problems in future, because FindPortalSide errors, there's lots of information out there. But this video can serve as a reference for anybody else in the future who's having the same issue. It's one of the most annoying problems to deal with. Thanks very much everybody, bye for now.